My name's Adrian Peters. I work for the Career Transition Partnership. And for the next half an hour, I'm going to talk to you about what the Career Transition Partnership does and the benefit to the world of engineering. To put it in context, in the last 12 months, about 2,500 service leavers have left and gone into engineer-related roles. So that gives you some idea of the flow that's come out into the engineering sector. And talking to people on the stands today and yesterday, what's come out really loud and clear to me is that it's not just the engineering skills they're interested in, it's the wider skills that the military personnel bring in terms of their teamwork, their discipline, their motivation. They are skills that are being sought. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go on. So that's what I'm going to cover in the next half an hour. The bits I'm going to focus on are what we do for our clients, the service leavers, and also the transferable skills. I think that's particularly relevant for the small but select gathering of the audience we have today. So in order to try and bring it to life, what I thought I'd do is I'd look at what does success look like for us. And there's no better way of doing that than actually saying, here's someone who's gone through that transition from the military to the civilian world and made a success of it. The chap in the photograph is a fellow called Al Gain. He served for 12 years in the Navy, decided that the time was right for him to move on. And he ended up with a job in Jaguar Land Rover. And I'd just like to sort of talk a little bit about the resettlement pathway he went through to give you some feel and flavour for what happened. And a couple of quotes from Al as well, which always brings things to life. Al's overriding comment at the end of his resettlement pathway was actually a lot of the skills that he's got, that he took from the military into the civilian world, were not actually formally taught. They are just instilled, they're gained by experience in a career spanning a whole lot of different stuff within the military. On top of those skills, Al had a number of formal qualifications, an HND and also an MSc. Al decided that he wanted to target Jaguar Land Rover. That was an organisation that he liked the idea of what they did and the ethos in which they did it, and also geographically it suited him. Al targeted them, engaged with them, and basically took his skills to them. And it was a slight hit and miss process for him. He said, here are the skills I've got, here's what I'm selling. And Jaguar Land Rover, with the qualifications and what he was bringing to the party, were able to say, here's what actually I'm bringing to you. And that clearly worked very well. One of the things that Al found, and for those of you involved in HR, is, and there is an adage, that HR departments are the graveyard of military CVs. Al found that to be the case. But with the contacts we had in Jaguar Land Rover, we were able to overcome that. And he was able to articulate what he had and the value it brings to the business. And that's really important, the relationship between us and industry here today. Al landed a role as a network engineer. And has now happily moved on. He actually left that role about 18 months ago, but has stayed in Jaguar Land Rover in the next role up. I think, interestingly, Al's comment on the biggest challenge that faced him was trying to learn two different industry sectors at the same time. He'd come from the military, in the Navy, doing a whole load of different stuff, but trying to learn both the manufacturing and the automotive industry sectors at the same time was the greatest challenge for him. But one of the attributes about service leavers, they are quick learners. So yes, it was a steep learning curve, but yes, he had the skills to do it. Slightly more formal bit. What is the CTP, the Career Transition Partnership? You see what it says there? Basically, there's a relationship between the Ministry of Defence and Right Management, who are part of a wider group. Please come in, grab a seat. Or go in the other end. You can come in this way. So that's what it is, and its focus is very much on helping service leavers, the men and women who come through, gain and sustain employment. Part of it is working with the charities, and I'm employed by a charity working inside the CTP, recognising that the CTP is there for 2 years post-discharge, but people want careers beyond that. And using the expertise and the skills they acquire as part of the CTP enables them to go on and job find for life. What is the process a service leaver goes through? I think this is quite important because there is a view, you see a service leaver, and again, the stand is over there, and you haven't visited us, please come and do so. and it's full of, cool, armoured, heavy metal toys. But what is the process that takes someone from playing with those metal toys to a career in industry? A couple of points to highlight. Each individual goes through, and their resettlement process is different. There is no one size fits all, because everyone is different. And like a lot of outplacement resettlement processes, it is a sport that is best done slowly. Because it's about what do I want to bring, where do I want to take my skill set. What do we have to support this process? We have a team, or I have a team, of employer engagement who engage with employers across the UK, one in each region, and that is about engaging with employers across all of the different sectors to make sure that they are aware of the service leavers coming out and the skills that they bring. As I said, there are about 13,000 service leavers come through each year, and we cover all client cohorts. And I'll talk a bit more later on about the different kinds of service leavers coming through, be they the mainstream service leavers or wounded, injured and sick and early service leavers. I'll talk a bit more about them later. And you can see the process going through there. There is a whole wealth of support that's given to a service leaver to help them work out what it is they want to do, how they're going to target themselves, and what additional skills they need to go and get to make sure they can take their skills to the military and transfer them across to the civilian employment market. Picture paints 1,000 words. What you've got here is a picture of the offering that we have and all the various bits and pieces that are there. And I particularly like this slide because it puts the service leaver at the heart of everything. And ultimately, they are individuals. And it's for them to choose what it is they want to achieve. It's not, you will go and do the following. The military gives someone a job, it drafts them into a job, and it moves them on. In the civilian world, it is different. And getting individuals to understand that's the world they're moving into can sometimes be a challenge. And you can see there's a wealth of support there that they need or that is available to them. And again, horses for courses. If you have someone who is come off the submarines and is a nuclear watchkeeper with a Cat A ticket, quite frankly, they could write their CV in a green crayon, and the nuclear industry would be very keen to speak to them. It is clearly a broader spread than that, and getting the CV right and tailored and understanding what they're taking is very, very important. As you look at the screen on the bottom right, vocational training, that's a key element of the resettlement process. It's about understanding what I have and how do I make those skills more saleable to the outside world, or give them that civilian qualification to make sure they can then take it out to employers. And we spend a lot of time working with employers to understand what are the skills and qualifications that they particularly want at any given point in time. Because qualifications change, things come into and out of fashion. And we are as responsive and as adaptive as we can be to make sure we're getting people the right qualifications. And finally, if you look at the top left of the screen, it says a dedicated ex-military jobs board. That's right job, and I will talk more about that as we go along. One of the real value adds to our clients coming through is that we go out and engage with employers, and we've met a host of employers today who are keen to work with service leavers. They load their jobs onto the jobs board. Again, it's free, it's at no cost to the employer to use. They load their jobs on there, so when service leavers go on, they know they're engaging with employers who are pro-service leavers. They want what service leavers bring to the party, and that's a big bit. So what do service leavers bring to the party? There is a view out there, and from Colonel Blimp to Dad's Army, Private Pike, those, I'm afraid, those caricatures are well and truly out there. And there is a view that people will do what they did in the military. That is not necessarily the case. And there is a wealth of evidence to show that people don't do that. There is a truism, a chunk of infantrymen go and do security work. That's absolutely true. But they also go and do a vast array of other stuff. And when I look at the jobs that service leavers go into, there are jobs that I hadn't even heard of or thought of, and you see service leavers going in and doing really, really well in a complete diverse stretch. So what we've got up there is the military trade and how it has read across to, or what they've gone into in jobs. And when you think of the military and the civilian world, there is a parallel in almost everything you can think of. The only parallel I am able to think of something is retail. We don't do retail. And interestingly enough, retail actually is very popular with service leavers. They enjoy going into it and they do very well. particularly and bizarrely, is the wounded, injured and sick cohort are attracted to the retail sector. I can't explain why. They are, and they do well in it. So what are these transferable skills that I keep talking about? And you can see there some of them and how it's equated from one to the other. It's anything from problem solving to time management to discipline, health and safety, awareness, the ability to operate in a team, and the ability to operate in different environments. And almost every serviceman or woman is exposed to some form of leadership, management, problem-solving role. And those skills are vital. One of the things that engaging with employers over the last 7 years I've been doing this, they all say, the thing I like about the military is they will come in, and if they see a problem, they'll say, that's a problem, I will own that, and they will be accountable. And there are plenty of people in the workforce today who say, do you know what, actually, I've seen that, I'd rather not be accountable for it, I'd rather leave it alone. But the military mindset is, no, that is wrong, I'm prepared to stand up and say, that's wrong, let's go and sort it out. And that manifests itself in different ways. And that accountability, I think, is one of those skills that's very difficult to quantify, but is really vital. Photograph of the smiley chap on the screen is Kieran Johnson. And I'd like to talk to you a bit about Kieran and how he went through his transition with a view to highlighting the skills that went through. Kieran served for 13 years in the Royal Signals. The radar-y dishy thing that's over there, you can tell that I was in the infantry and don't do technical stuff, is the kind of technical kit that Kieran was using. Similar to Al, part of his resettlement process, he undertook a series of training courses, which meant that he could use the skills he'd acquired in the army and take it out there. He landed a job with Siemens as a senior testing and commissioning engineer. And talking to Kieran, one of his big things was actually the similarities between what he did in the military and what he did when he left. But the similarity, as much as it is a hardware piece of kit, the way in which he applied the skills was fundamentally different. And that was the big thing for him that took him a while to get his head round, but he was able to realise that his skills were directly transferable from what he was doing in the Royal Signals across to Siemens. And he was contracted out by Siemens to a number of other different employers, BT Openreach, Virgin, to name but two. Again, the big thing that Kieran's view was actually the steepness of the learning curve. The kit was the same, the way in which it was used and the way in which the rest of the workforce dealt with it was the biggest learning curve for him. But he was able to adapt and he was able to overcome those challenges. And again, so the abiding memory that Kieran takes from his transition, now he's been out a couple of years, is the fact that actually the skills that he brought, and I talked about these earlier, in terms of the team working, the ethos, the discipline, are held in really high regard by employers, and he values that for the respect that he is given by the employer and what he can bring to the wider team. So the two work hand in hand. As employers, how do you benefit? The key piece at the top is normally the one that catches the eye. It is a no-cost recruitment service, and it genuinely is a no-cost, either to the individual going through or to employers using it. The cost, if you like, is time, and that is time to engage with and understand the service leavers and upload jobs to the system, but that is the pure cost. And again, there's a bit there, it talks about Right Job. Right Job is a board, it is used by 13,000 service leavers. It is available to veterans and beyond as well, so it is not just those who are coming directly out of the military, it's those who may have a period of time and experience. And part of what we do with our service leaver, the client base, is when things, they lose a job or they want to change jobs, is to encourage them to come back and use Right Job again. Because it works, and they are still bringing the same ethos and value set to employers they were at the point they left the services. There are a host of other events we do. We do employer events across the UK, and that's anything between 500 and 2,500 service leavers turn up, and they are focused regionally. We run a series of newsletters which go out and we promote industry, and we run campaigns. We recently ran a campaign for BT Openreach, making sure that for their recruitment, we could say, here you go, this is what's out there, and tailoring pathways for them. Insight to Industry Days, there is a truism, service leavers that do not understand what the civilian world does. So by coming in and saying, here's what my organisation does, brings people to the party. We run live chats, and that's exactly as it says, it's a live chat going on, and we focus on an industry or a sector at a time, and people can speak to those in the industry and really understand what it is that sector's after, what they want, and how they might take where they are now into that sector. And that's a very valuable tool, both for the employers, because they get a feel of what's coming down the pipeline, and also for the service leavers to talk to someone in the industry and get a real and proper understanding of the current trends. Just 2 seconds whilst the slide builds. I talked about the value add. What is it? What are the other things that service leavers bring to the party? And you can see here, some would call it value add, some call it the hidden value. As I said at the start, my experience this morning going round, these are the skills that employers I've spoken to the last 2 days are looking for. The engineering is almost taken as a given, which is quite interesting, because we say we're desperate for engineers, but once you get over the engineering threshold, these are the skills they really want, particularly for things like field engineers. And I'll give you an example of 2 large organisations who've taken significant numbers of service leavers, how they've used that value add skill to change their organisation. One organisation is very much, they have teams of military individuals rather than spreading it out across. And that's because they want teams of military individuals working out in the field, doing the bit, but they've kept them together, ex-military with ex-military, and that works for them as a business. And there are good reasons why. Another organisation has spread the ex-military jam across all of its workforce with a view that that value and ethos set will spread across the organisation and will change the way the organisation does business. So from an employer perspective, how you choose to bring and use that value add is entirely up to you. But there are different ways of doing it, and it works well for different companies. Bit of logo spaghetti. Who do we deal with? Who do we work with? They are but some of the employers who we work with. Very much the bigger brands. A lot of our business is done with the small to medium-sized enterprise. And these are organisations who want to recruit ones and twos. They don't want big numbers. But whether it's a national company who wants to run a big campaign, as we did with BT Openreach, there's over 2,000 service leavers gone to BT Openreach, or a small to medium-sized enterprise who's after ones and twos, we can cater for both. But that gives you some idea of the scale and spread of organisations we are working with. Very much, what is on offer, what is available, how can we work together? The online recruitment, right job, I've talked about that already. And then going through the different offerings, and this is about what works for you as an employer. We recognise not every employer will either want to or be able to run a live chat, and that's absolutely fine. It's about what works for you, what suits you as a business, what is it that you want. And the menu is as broad as it is long, and it can change going along. Part of this, and again, the bottom is the civilian work attachments. If you like, it's a try before you buy. And there's very much a view. Service leavers come out, they have time. We talked about the training earlier on. They have both time and training. And a number of them do civilian work attachments so they can understand, is this a world I want to go into? Also, it enables an industry to look at them and say, actually, is this the kind of individual we want? And the success of civilian work attachments, from our perspective, is huge. And those going to employment directly on the back of that, again, is huge. So they're very successful for us. 2 other cohorts I mentioned, and this is about recognising the diversity of the defence message. Not all service leavers leave the military after a normal and successful career. Wounded, injured and sick are those individuals, exactly as it says on the tin, who've either lost a limb because of operations or a motorbike accident, or have a terminal illness. Either way, they leave the military prematurely from what they're expecting. A lot of effort goes into making sure that these individuals are able to take what they wanted to do. The old me wanted to be a soldier, sailor or airman. The new me, what does the new me want to do? And working out what they want to do. And this is where I talked earlier on about I was in the infantry, therefore I went into security. And it's about getting someone who's injured and had a big confidence knock to see the world, look up, see the world differently. And again, we've had a real success with getting people into really positive work attachments and then employment in jobs they wanted to do they hadn't previously thought about. And again, the outcomes for this client cohort are unbelievably diverse in terms of what they've achieved. Early service leavers, another cohort, and this recognises that the military isn't for everybody. Going through phase 1 training, particularly in January, is a pretty brutal experience. And there are plenty of people who think, actually, do you know what? This isn't what I want to do. This is not the lifestyle I want. And it's a bit Marmite. I served for 18 years. I loved it. There's lots of individuals who turn up and think, actually, no, I hate this. This is not what I want to do. So there's a process where people can leave. Early service leavers, a bulk of them come from those in training. And again, they've joined, they've committed to the military, and there's a level of support to help them get jobs and go beyond. A small but bespoke gathering today. What are the next steps? The big plea from me, for those of us who want to work and are interested in service leavers, is to go and engage and register on Right Job. Right Job, you can go on as an employer, you can say, hello, this is me, and then a human being, but importantly, the right human being, comes back and gives you a call, talks through what it is you want and what you're seeking, whether that's service leavers or you're interested in reserves or the cadets or the wider defence message. They can all be discussed. And if it is service leavers you want, we register and get you set up on Right Job. And again, you can see the other options that are there and are available to you. Short but sweet. That is that's not my pitch, if you like. I'm very happy and open to take any questions on all sorts of obscure subjects, should you wish to. Joe's got a microphone, so if you want a question, could you hang on to the microphone? Joe, there's a gentleman behind who's got a question I know I can't answer.
Yeah, I'll just briefly reiterate what we spoke about beforehand, which was there was an enormous pool of defence expertise at the cutting edge and beyond, which was wasted when the defence labs were privatised, and those people just drifted away into other activities, lost to the sector. That's the first point. The second point is there not an analogy here with steel workers, car makers, expertise in sectors which have now disappeared over the last 30 years, which the country could have benefited from by bringing them into other sectors, using their background, rather like you're describing here?
Yeah, I think the historical stuff, we discussed that all day. I don't know. I think what I can talk about is what we're doing about it now, particularly in the engineering. We are having conversations with the engineering sector, looking at a skills passport, because engineering recognises it's losing people outside the engineering profession, be that from the military to the civilian world or inside the civilian engineering world. And how does the engineering world keep those engineers who are good and transfer their skills across? And we're doing a lot of work on a skills passport with other civilian engineering organisations to look at how you don't get that brain drain for exactly the reason you talk about. Historically, what's happened has happened. Going forward, there's a lot of work, particularly in the engineering sector, to stop that happening again in the future. Bunny, do you want to, I think?
Sorry, I'm part of this team, but actually it is worth noting that there's work with MOD and across other government departments with oil and gas, with steel, with automotive, to actually look at how we do redistribute those people across the entire UK workforce for a sort of a UK prosperity as opposed to our own. So this is just a bit of it, and is the MOD's outflow. We're actually looking at some of those people as whether they'd want to come into us. And indeed, if they don't want to come into us, what other sectors are we working with? And we're working much more extensively than the contract I've let with CTP across Department for Transport, Department for Education, BIS, to see where else you can do that. There is no switch that you can flick and it works instantly. We wish that was so, but there's quite a lot of activity happening in that space, exactly as you would hope at the moment. How effective it will be remains to be seen.
Can I ask a question? Who before today had heard of the CTP? Anyone? No one? Okay. On the back of today, is anyone interested in coming using the CTP, interested in service leavers, what they offer? Have a taker. Very happy to talk afterwards. Very keen to talk afterwards, in fact, not just happy to. Any more for any more? Other than, I'd like to talk to you two.
Hello.
Hi.
You probably already mentioned this, but after they've been recruited, do you offer support with the ongoing integration into the company?
It depends. The answer is yes, but no, but. Service leavers, the CTP is there from 2 years pre-discharge until 2 years post-discharge. A vast majority of service leavers make a very smooth transition and go into employment, and that's it, they're fine. For those who want additional level of support, there is mentoring and there's in-work support. Some of that's provided by the CTP, because they can come back and use it. Other bits of it's provided by the networks we have, and a lot of organisations, particularly those who take numbers of service leavers, have ex-military in the workforce, and they then start mentoring it in. So it works at two different levels. And a lot of people, when they've left the military, they want to leave the military. You know, I've done my bit, I loved it, it was great, but I want to move on and do something different. But there's the most amazing underground network of veterans out there like you wouldn't believe. And the people who you know, who are veterans, they pop up. And it's often the way in which, you know, we talk, we dress, the way we walk. Well, it sounds really silly, but it is that trite. And one veteran will spot another veteran, and they will just pick on to people. And it can be really, you know, do you want a brew rather than do you want a cup of tea? Straight away, you're an ex-soldier. And it is that silly, you know. And it's like a secret language we speak, but we don't let anyone else in because we don't have to. But so there is mentoring support, but a lot of it's done in the workplace, and it's about people moving on. And a large part of the way the CTP is structured is to get people to do it for themselves, and say, this is you. We own the process, you own the outcome. You know, we will help you absolutely all the way and will support you all the way. But ultimately, this is your life and you need to move on and do it. And a vast majority of service leavers embrace that and grab it. This is what they want to do. And they want to be able to stand on their own feet.
And is there a service to support the employer in integrating? And
this is where some employers, you know, we have account managers. I talked about we have an account manager in each region and have a national team, and we have a central support team. Some employers actually want to have a very transactional. I want to load on 2 jobs a year, and that's it. That's all I want from you. Other employers want to have a whole relationship plan, account management. You know, what is it that you want? So it depends on what the employer wants. When you go into dealing with the wounded, injured, sick cohort, we've done civilian work attachments, and some of these guys and girls are badly damaged. You know, if you've lost 2 legs, you know, you can be pretty badly damaged. And so there's a conversation that takes place between us and the employer saying, this individual's doing a work attachment, here's the support they may or may not need. And if I wind the clock back 2 years ago, mental health and employment was a taboo. We talked about mental health and we talked about employment. We didn't talk about the two together. That has now changed. You can happily talk to employers about mental health because everyone in their work, 1 in 4 people have mental health issues. So count the room, there's 3 people here type scenario. So employers are now open and they're engaging and embracing, you know, the concept of mental health. So these subjects are no longer taboo, but having those honest conversations with employers is really important. So if we don't, we're mis-selling. And people do. When it goes wrong, and we have had instances, particularly with wounded and sick, where it's gone wrong. And that's the point, you rush in like the cavalry and you take them out quick. Because with the vulnerable cohorts, you mustn't do damage, either to the employer or to the individual. So yeah, that relationship's there. But I say, that's for the small number. I mean, to be careful, this is small numbers. A vast majority move on, sail on, and do very, very well.
Thank you.
Hello. You mentioned training. I just wondered how involved CTP gets with the training and what levels are quite common.
There are two distinct levels. Firstly, there's what's called contract-funded training. This is the MOD pays for a series of courses that are run as part of the contract, and we deliver. And that means that the service leavers get training at exceptional value they can do. And this is about making sure we understand what it is employers want and where the volume comes through to make sure we're using that MOD money as smartly as we can. So that's the first bit. The second bit is a preferred supplier list. A preferred supplier list. And this is again about recognising the industries and skills that service leavers want to go into. You know, project management is very popular. The balance here is about having trainers who want to add real value, not just bundle courses together because they can make more money out of it. And there's a balance to be had there. What's useful is we've got 10 years worth of data. We've just started a new contract. The data's getting better and better, so we understand the flow of service leavers coming through, so we can tailor that training. And when the right people are on the preferred supplier list, we can go out and we can target them and follow up there. And then there's a third bit, which is, if you like, well, not contract funded, not on the preferred supplier list. What else do you want to do? And there will always be funnies that, that want to do. People will want to go and do some weird legal course, which, there are relatively few lawyers lead. People want to go and be a Thatcher. I had one guy who was working in Edinburgh. He was desperate to be a chimney sweep. We didn't have a chimney sweep on the preferred supplier list. Funny old thing. But we got him a chimney sweep course. I didn't know there was such a thing. But so this is where the value add of having an organisation that's spread across the UK. What is it you want to do? And having a pool of money and time, which the MOD gives an entitlement, to be able to go and target it, and having people who understand what's out there. Any more for any more? Don't let those two gentlemen over there leave. Thank you very much.